willing to divulge whose side he's on, right? Some people wouldn't. I love everybody equally. But not here. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, welcome back. Joining us now on the Western Hotline from somewhere in or around Santa Clara, California, is Mike Giardi, Boston Sports Journal. So it is Super Bowl week. Mike, what are we tearing you away from? So generous always with your time. What would you be doing if not this?
Well, you have me postponing my the recording of my podcast, so that's okay because, quite frankly, I'm a little tired of dicing this thing up in terms of arguing with myself, if you will, because that's what this podcast will be. So right now I'm sitting out on the deck, and it's beautiful and sunny, and I needed that.
Yeah, good. All right, we're a little bit of a respite for you, which is
we might
good.
still have Super Bowl questions.
I mean, we're going to fire questions at you,
I'm
but still.
all game for Super Bowl questions. I will debate and discuss with you. It's just having the conversation with myself over and over again.
Getting a little old.
Yeah.
Well, is there a sentiment in the Boston area media where, like, I can't believe we're back here already? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you go back a number of years, but the Patriots came from such a low place here not that long ago, last year. Is there that kind of vibe in the air?
100%. I think, I think when you and I talked, and we talked back, I think maybe week 8 or 9 is when I started to think, like, they're actually a good team and this could go someplace. But I still didn't think the place was going to be in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks. And I think that's generally how a lot of people feel about it. It was like, the schedule and various things. And even just looking at the roster, again, I think I probably said this to you guys. Internally, they think that they're a year away from having the kind of roster they want, another offseason away. So the fact that they're here, I think, is even a little bit of a surprise to them.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I think one of the great things that we should learn and retain one season over another is to let go of some preconceived ideas, right? Like, I don't know, we probably talked in the fall, Mike. You're like Mike said, you're generous enough with your time that we have you on a number of times a season. And like, yeah, New England's coming, but, they're probably over there for now. Maybe they'll win 10, and they're going to be a problem, but not yet. And I clung to that all year with the schedule point and whatever else. And here they are in the Super Bowl. It's just sometimes you got to cut bait on what you thought was going to happen when the evidence to the contrary just keeps smashing you in the face.
Yeah, and look, like guys like Diggs, who you guys know well, obviously, and Milton Williams, who came over from Philadelphia for the big contract in the offseason, even they've admitted, I like the idea of playing for Vrabel. I like the young quarterback, but, did we think we would be here? No. When we signed these contracts, we never thought that this was the spot that we were going to be in. So even that maybe they had to somewhat be convinced that things were different. And that's the one thing, I've covered these guys since 99, and obviously had my stop at the NFL Network. And I don't know, there's certain seasons that just feel like they have their tinged with a little bit of glitter and gold. And this just, there's a little magic, a pixie dust, whatever you want to say. And that this season has sort of become that as it's gone along. It's funny. You talk to the players too. And, for me, the Bills game in Buffalo was the first time I was like, oh, okay. But then, in my head, I'm like, well, maybe Buffalo just kind of overlooked them a little bit. But the players will tell you it was the Pittsburgh game, which was week 3. That was the game they turned the ball over 5 times, twice in the red area, once in the end zone interception, and once as Ramondre Stevenson was crossing the 1-yard line to get into the end zone. And they were like, it was that game where we're like, we did so many good things, and there's so much more here than maybe even we thought. Yeah. And to them, that was the point that they sort of jumped off.
Mike, with all of that said, is there any sense of this being kind of a free roll for them?
So I think from the outside perspective, I think a lot of people feel that way. I hear from the fan base a lot. It's like, well, it doesn't even matter because Drake's obviously not had a great postseason numbers-wise. I'm like, yeah, but he's in the Super Bowl in year 2. It's only going to get better. And I will tell you the thing that they think internally, and has been communicated to me, is like, you never know. It's the Dan Campbell line from a couple of years ago when they got to the NFC Championship game and lost to San Francisco. And he said after the game, I told the guys, we may never get back here again. And everyone's like, oh, what are you talking about? You have this great team, this young foundation, and then they haven't been that far again. it's only been a couple years removed from it, but I think the message from the inside is like, take advantage of the opportunity, guys, like, because you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here and we're playing great football, and you're confident and you trust the coaching staff. So we got one more step. Put all you can into it over these 2 weeks, in the last week and this week, and leave it on the field and see what happens.
It's Dan Campbell or it's Dan Marino in his second year going to the Super Bowl, and famously all those years we spent saying that, right? How was he not back?
I never would have guessed, right? He was phenomenal. They were a great coach like that. Yeah, you would have bet the house that he was going to get to multiple Super Bowls and win plenty.
With Mike Giardi, I was at that Week 5 game, the Sunday night Patriots win here, and I was curious about New England, and I thought I had bets on them to clear their win total and make the playoffs. But that was a really impressive night. And then at some point in there, you look at, like you kind of said already, you look at the standings and the schedule that's left, and the Bills are going to need help. I mean, they're going to need help, not just win in New England, which they did, but something else is going to have to go wrong, or they're not going to catch them. It feels, what's your perspective on this? We were talking about this in here earlier. Last year, when the Bills won, 14 games last year or whatever they did. They didn't win in Foxborough at the end when they saw Joe Milton. But they had such a good season, and it felt like a really bad beat that Kansas City won all those games by a smidge, and they were beating bad teams barely. This season does not feel like a bad beat in the same way, to me, about the Bills. New England did have that schedule advantage, but they did lose to the Patriots. And they had games, the Bills, Mike, where they were just not good. So there's a lot, people have said a lot about New England's path. I mean, not even really much adversity in the playoffs, relatively speaking, but I think they deserved it. I think the Patriots deserved it.
Yeah, I would say the one thing too, and as you play this season out and you go through the course of it, it's like, okay, yeah, the schedule, but to your point, they've lost once in the last 17 weeks, and that was to the Bills in a game they were up 21-0 and 24-7 at half. And they were disgusted with themselves after that game, and tons of credit. Obviously, they weren't saying like Josh Allen didn't do this or they didn't make these adjustments, but like that's the kind of run they've been on. They've taken care of the Tennessees and the New Orleans or whoever, the games where you'd think like if they had a slip up, you could kind of understand it. And they never had that. In fact, in many of those cases, they beat the crap out of those teams, which is sort of where I got to the point where I was like, no, they're good, man. It's like they're not just scraping by. They're not getting lucky. They're just, okay, we might have toyed around with Tennessee for a half, but in the second half we outscore them, 21-0 or something, and it's an ass beating, and you're putting in backups in the fourth quarter, and that's sort of how this has played out for them.
They went to Tampa in the middle of the season, and that was one where they were probably an underdog. And, like, if the Bills don't get a break here from Tampa, they could really be in trouble. It was week 9, I guess. Well, there you are at the Super Bowl. There are the Patriots again. It's tough. It's tough here, Mike. Like, just
I can only imagine. And then you go through the coaching change, and the owner saying it's not win now, but yet he basically said we hit this playoff wall, right? So it is, to me, it is sort of a win now. And Josh is about to be 30, and not that he can't play great football for another, God, we've seen these guys. They can do it for 38, 39, or you can be the Brady Rodgers model too. But yeah, there's got to be a feeling of like, damn, like what do we got to do? This was supposed to be our division for the next however many years, and this happened unexpectedly, and maybe New England might be poised to be in the mix for a lot longer because of their quarterback and head coach.
Right. How about their quarterback? The playoffs, I mean, obviously the title game is, in a blizzard in the second half, and so, nobody's doing much of anything. Turnover fest against Houston. The Chargers really didn't like Maye has not had to do much to make it to the Super Bowl in the playoff games so far. How much do you think is on him to because I think they're probably going to have to score, 28 to 35 points, I think, to come away with a win here. So that would indicate, if I'm right about that, because I think Seattle's going to move the ball and score points, that he's going to have to be on point here.
I would share your thought that he cannot like this has been less than what we've expected for 3 straight weeks now. And again, you mentioned there are some extenuating circumstances in terms of the weather in the Texans game, and certainly the weather in the second half in Denver. But even before those moments that clicked in, he wasn't playing great in those playoffs. I want to say he's had like 4 good drives. The offense as a whole has had 4 good drives in the entirety of the postseason. So I'm with you. He's got to play better. He's got to be more like the regular season, MVP or second place in the MVP, probably second place in the MVP voting Thursday night when that gets revealed. And I think the week off has done him good, not only from a physical standpoint, with the whole shoulder thing that I think is really not much of anything, but more like a fatigue thing. And also just sort of reset. Go back, remember what you did well, and Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator, has been very good in his history, when not just here, but in his other stops, which, as we know, as a head coach, didn't necessarily work out. But if you look at they had a bye, or they had 10 days to prepare for a game, his quarterbacks always tended to play better. So I think Josh has done a good job over the course of his career of helping guys reset a little bit.
I don't see the same high-scoring game, Bulldog, as you do. New England's defense is pretty good. 16 points or fewer in 5 straight. That includes the playoffs. It also includes the Jets. I don't know. What is the Sam Darnold? What is your opinion on this player who everybody seems to always be sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop? And this year, it hasn't yet. And he's even been great at times in the postseason. Do you see, it maybe starts with your opinion of him and just how much you trust him. And then it's after that, how good of a matchup do you think the Patriots defense is or bad, and what they might be able to figure out about Seattle?
So I like Sam. I think he's extraordinarily talented. I think you have to throw away. I think it's sort of unfair, the Jets thing that sticks with him, and the idea, the famous, seeing ghost quote against the Patriots in what I think that was 2019 or whatever. He's far removed from that. He's far removed from bad organization, from bad coaching, a more mature player, surrounded by better people, obviously now has a slew of life and career experiences. And yet I say I like and not love because we just lived this last year. He had a terrific regular season with a terrific play caller, play designer, and Kevin O'Connell. And then with the number 1 seed on the line to finish off the regular season, he was a turnover machine. And then while I really don't put a ton of the playoff loss the following week on him, remember they had to go play in Arizona because of the stuff that was going on in L.A. and their offensive line was falling apart. So I don't put a lot of that on him, but I think the week before there was a lot on him. And so, 20 turnovers, I believe, this year between the interceptions and the fumbles, which might be the most or second most in the league.
Led the league.
Those are the things that you just kind of he was awesome last week in the NFC Championship game. Awesome. That maybe, certainly of the times I've watched Sam Darnold, and I can't say that I've watched every Sam Darnold game ever, I can't imagine that he played a better football game. So he's capable of that, but can he do it again? And I think the Patriots defense has some better answers. And I would say that for me, it starts in the interior. And I wrote about this today for Boston Sports Journal about the Patriots defensive tackles. If you look at the center for Seattle and the guard, Bradford in particular, those are their weak links on the offensive line. And the Patriots' strength is right up the gut with Milton Williams, with Christian Barmore, and then they actually have a second wave of guys, Kyrus Tonga and Corey Durden, who have played really well for them for the majority of the season. And to me, that's an area where you win there, you win early, you're in Sam's face. Maybe that forces the turnover. Maybe he gets happy feet and gets a little uncomfortable. That to me is the quickest path or the best path for victory for the Patriots, is because their strength, to me, kind of contrasts with the weakness of the Seattle offense.
Recognizing it's only Wednesday here, we've got a couple of days to wind out the week, or at least the media portion of the week. How have you found Stephon Diggs this week, Mike?
Calm, excited. It's funny. You guys lived this, and I came into this very wary of him and just his personality and things. His teammates rave about him. and it's maybe this is just the year one Stephon Diggs thing, right? The honeymoon with Stephon Diggs is always fantastic. It's years 2, 3, and 4 where it starts to erode and ego starts to play a little bit more of a role. But you talk to some of the younger players, the Pop Douglases or rookie Kyle Williams in that room, and they're like, we needed a guy like that, and like to be able to watch how he works and to be able to watch how he studies and how he sees things and him talking to us and taking us under a wing has been really big for our development. And Drake has praised him up and down over the course of the year for just the stabilizing presence that he's been on the field, never mind the work that he puts in off the field. So I think he's really excited for the moment. He just, like the offense, he's sort of been a little bit missing in action here over the last month.
A few minutes left with Mike Giardi. If you haven't, Mike, I would love to hear you talk about what the Bills did in firing Sean McDermott after the Denver loss. Did it shock you? Would you support it? What do you think?
So I've said this to a lot of people that have asked me, but just friends locally, who know that I, have an affinity for Buffalo and obviously covered the team for some time. And I said, you can tell me that you view this as, if you're Terry Pagula and Brandon Beane, that we've reached our pinnacle with Sean and we just can't get over the hump. You can sell that to me as a fair and logical decision, but to turn the page and go to a guy who's never been a head coach before, who was on the staff that couldn't get over the playoff wall or whatever he called it, like that to me is a little bit more difficult to digest. And I don't know that this was necessarily – this is crazy, but this wasn't the right year for it. I mean, we're talking about a real dearth of candidates, and we're getting some recycled guys, and we're getting some really uninspired hires in the mix. And you were sort of further down the list because of the playoff game and making the move when they did. That I don't know. I like the Leonard hiring as a DC, and I think that helps. But this is going to be Joe's offense, and Joe is, from a personality standpoint, I think we can all agree, is probably like a 180 from Sean. And maybe that gives them a boost in the short term, but they gave up a lot of experience and a lot of know-how. And quite frankly, a guy that, I think you'd look at it too, I didn't think their defense should be all that good this year. And for a stretch there, it wasn't. And Sean managed to piece it together to the point where at the end of the year, we're like, are we not giving them enough respect? Are they that good? So it's going to be a challenge. I think there's a lot of heat on Joe, no matter what Pagula and Beane say. Not
only that he is a first-time head coach, but that he was here when you're kind of touting change,
right?
And that's what's more.
How's that change?
How does that change?
Changes. You blow out the whole thing, And I think you could make the argument. I know Brandon's going to be on. I have the utmost respect for Brandon, and he was always great in my dealings with him. But some of the pieces that he gave him, some of the drafts, what are we, where did this team sort of break down? Where were their holes? And is that because of the coach, or is that because of the talent that the coach was given?
I think we're already seeing this start to leak out. Odds for next year, the Bills and Patriots will be side by side, at least as the offseason starts. Maybe Sunday's result changes that a little bit. Just one quick selfish question from me, a frustrated me, having watched the Patriots-Broncos game. Is Travion Henderson still with the Patriots?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you keep thinking, because of the speed and because of some of the bursts that we've seen over the course of the year, that is there a plan for him? But I think truly the plan is going to be just what it's been here in the playoffs. You're going to get a series with Trevion early in the game, second or third series, where he's going to be the primary back, and Ramondre will be off to the side. And how he runs, how he handles those plays is going to determine whether he continues to play going forward. They haven't trusted him in pass protection, which was funny because coming out of Ohio State, that was he was the best pass protecting back in the draft by anybody that you talk to. And if you're a film grinder, you saw it on film. He's been not good at that at all this year. And so the blitz pickup and the ball security thing, Ramondre cleaned up his ball security thing, and now he's reliable. Ramondre knows that if there's only 2 yards there, get the 2 yards. Henderson still wants to bounce it and hit it, and that's, the lure, because when he does, no one's catching him. He's going 70 yards, but there were too many times here in the last 4 or 5 weeks where he tried to bounce and create something, and he loses 3, and instead of 2nd and 7, it's 2nd and 13, and it changes the whole equation for the offense.
Right on. Thank you, Mike. Well, maybe a glass of water before you start down the podcast street here. You'll know what to do. You'll know what to do.
It's a busy.
I'll manage.
Busy week for you. Thanks for making time for us, man. It means a lot.
You guys, anytime.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Giardi, Boston Sports Journal, Patriots, Seahawks, Sunday. We'll break here. 803-0550. Next hour is open. Paul will join us at 6 on the Sabres, and I'm sure we'll get to them between now and then. Thanks for listening. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.